whole life. Can play it on the quiet side, but I'm not shy. Maybe I'm the flower painted on the wall. Maybe I'm the number that you never call. I've been waiting in the shadows way too long, saving up my punches while I bite my tongue. I'm about to strike, gonna leave a mark. Take a seat, the show's about to start. You won't see me coming, but you're gonna know when I show up, show up. Gonna make your head spin, make you listen. Yeah, you will know my name. From the shadow to the spotlight, from the background to the front lines. I'm a fire, about to ignite out of nowhere. Gonna hit you in your blind side. Gonna hit you in your blind side. Gonna hit you. Feeling like a viper finally shed my skin. Bet you didn't know I had it from the outside in. Counting down the hours, careful where you are. Watch your back, the show's about to start. You won't see me coming, but you're gonna know when I show up, show up. Gonna make your head spin, make you listen. Yeah, you will know my name. From the shadow to the spotlight, from the background to the front lines. I'm a fire, about to ignite out of nowhere. Gonna hit you in your blind side. Gonna hit you in your blind side. Gonna hit you. Blind side, in your blind side. You'll never know it's coming till it hits you. In your blind side, in your blind side. You'll never know it's coming till it hits you. In your blind side, in your blind side. You'll never know it's coming till it hits you. In your blind side, in your blind side. You'll never know, never know, never know. You won't see me coming, but you're gonna know when I show up, show up. Gonna make your head spin, make you listen. Yeah, you will know my name. From the shadow to the spotlight, from the background to the front lines. I'm a fire, about to ignite out of nowhere. Gonna hit you in your blind side. Gonna hit you in your blind side. In your blind side.
Deep in the witching hour, nothing can calm my mind. Love and possession, moonlight obsession, seek and you know I'll find something to feed this hunger. It keeps me up at night. Lover, I'll get you just like I meant to. I need to make you mine. Hot are your heels and I want you now. Turn up the heat and I'll take you down. I'll take you down, down, down.
a pocket of heart. If you listen close, you can hear him cry. Oh Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Sing it. Oh Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Way down below, way down below. Judy's in the front seat, picking up trash, living on the dole, gotta make that cash. Won't be pretty, won't be sweet, she's just sitting there on her feet, singing, oh Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Go. Oh Lord, heaven to the devil's playground. You can tread where demons play. It's your Candyland where dreamers dance, and I promise that it's safe. Welcome to the devil's playground. You can look and you can touch. It's a real fine day at the Black Parade, and I swear it won't cost much.
I'm sorry, just help me. Good, your name's on the market. Come on, click your heels and know that you can, honey. I'll say it's just a fake. My sugar coat will erase. You should be free. Show me what you are made of. Don't let it all burn down.
She comes creeping like a storm in the middle of July and crawls to the corner of your mind. Her scent will draw you in to the sweetness of a smile. You'll be chained by the weight there in her eyes. Oh, you best just walk on by. Don't get too close to that garden that she's growing. Yeah, there's a spider in the roses. She's so beautiful, yeah, she knows it. But there's a spider in the roses. She loves you not as the petals peel away. One by one, she's watching as you pray. She manipulates the rules, knows every move there is to make. Yeah, she's the creator of the game. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. Don't get too close to that garden that she's growing. Yeah, there's a spider in the roses. She's so beautiful, yeah, she knows it. But there's a spider in the roses. There's a spider in the roses. Don't get too close to that garden that she's growing. There's a spider in the roses. She's so beautiful, yeah, she knows it. There's a spider in the roses. Oh, 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 yeah, there's a spider in the roses. Oh, yeah, there's a spider in the roses.
Every time we touch, your hands are colder, colder. There's no beating coming from your wooden chest. Frozen grin, a mannequin. When I get closer, I can see the strings that underneath your vest. If you can cry real tears, then you're gonna cry them all for me. If you can feel real fears, then I'm gonna leave you shivering. I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you. La, 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 la. I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you. La, 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 la. Into a real boy, the big reveal boy. Gonna make you feel, boy, just like a real boy. Just like a real boy. Who's the one that turns your world to winter, winter? Who's the boy beneath the door that wants to live? I can give you life with just a single whisper. Show you what the meaning of a heartbeat is. If you can cry real tears, then you're gonna cry them all for me. If you can feel real fears, then I'm gonna leave you shivering.
professional assistance in understanding the art of human love. Step 1. Engage your partner in a series of increasingly intimate questions. Then, answer the same questions openly and truthfully. Step 2. Wait until an appropriate level of personal rapport has been achieved before participating in skin-on-skin contact. Step 3. Remain emotionally present during intercourse, periodically gazing into one another's eyes until the final moment of physical intimacy.
If you can cry real tears, then you're gonna cry them all for me. If you can feel real fears, then I'm gonna leave you shivering. I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, la 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 la. I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna make you, la 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 la. Into a real boy, a big reveal boy, gonna make you feel boy, just like a real boy, just like a real boy. Just like a real boy.
Step 4. Once both parties have reached climax, continue to hold each other in a close embrace. Step 5. When the evening is complete, do not exit the building. I repeat, do not exit the building until the morning sun has risen.
I haven't met a locked door yet that I couldn't beat. On a chain around my neck, I keep my skeleton key. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton key. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton key. By now it's just a simple trick, not much to see. You hear the tumblers catch and click, then turn the key. But I found work and welcome everywhere I've been, 'cause everyone's got some place they wanna be let in. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton key. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton key. Along the way, the old man called me by my mother's name. She looked just the same, they say. The children wave or hide behind their mother's skirts, afraid. Strangers here still seem strange. They hear the accent. No, I'm from nowhere near, but I speak the language, and I know the customs here. I come from over the horizon, pass through every dozen years. Go home, tell of my arrival. The skeleton keys. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton keys. Don't waste your worry on me. I always find what I need. Come and go as I please. I've got my skeleton key. I've got my skeleton key. I've got my
I do it for so much less. When all is made clear, there is nothing else. And here we stand, the sweet, arresting duality. And I come to, it's raising all over me. Will I awake? Will I get it right with you? In this race of two, we're an endless stream of choices, with the softest murmur of voices. Without names we're fantasizing, dancing like flames, mesmerizing. A darkness quiet playing satiric harmonies, making waves and diving under, lightning to the sound of thunder. A darkness quiet singing such haunting melodies. So white, so still, so bright, it's almost too painful now. I'm ready to fight, to run from the light. And here now comes the sweet, corrupting reality. While now I'm free, will I once cease to be? Will I awake? Will I get it right with you? In this race of two, we are momentary masters. We're false kings and bastards. Without names we're fantasizing, dancing like flames, mesmerizing. A darkness quiet playing such eerie harmonies. I'm making waves and diving under, lightning to the sound of thunder. My darkness quiet singing such haunting melodies. We are marionettes, by strings animated, yet like lovers, of strings liberated. We are marionettes, by strings animated, yet like lovers, of strings liberated. Without names we're fantasizing. Without names we're fantasizing, dancing like flames, mesmerizing. My darkness quiet playing such eerie harmonies, making waves and diving under, lightning to the sound of thunder. My darkness quiet singing such haunting melodies. Brothers but not separated, marionettes.
It's a fine line between courage and fear. You can see the ghosts, but you know that they're here. Blame it on the sinners, blame it on the saints. Blame it on the pills you're pouring down the blame. Blame it on the truth, the lies are tucked away. Blame it on the pleasure when all we want is pain. Who didn't see it coming, didn't see the signs, didn't see tomorrow stare right in our eyes. I never ask why the wicked live and the good ones die. Time, ran out of time. We all kill to survive. I would take a bullet for you. My heart is made of stone. I would take a bullet for you. I would take a bullet for you. My heart is made of stone. I would take a bullet for you. Blame the politicians, the corporations too. Blame it on the immigrants cause they don't look like you. Blame it on the money, blame it on the fame. Blame it on the love and fools that play that. Blame it on your mother cause daddy walked away. You can keep on running but you can't make them stay. Blame it on the drummer, slam 1, 2, 3. Marching down the hallway, coming after me. I never ask why the wicked live and the good ones die. Time, ran out of time. We all kill to survive. I would take a bullet for you. My heart is made of stone. I would take a bullet for you. I would take a bullet for you. My heart is made of stone. I would take a bullet for you. My heart is made of stone. I never ask why the wicked live and the good ones die. Die, we're out of time. We all want to survive.
I watched you lock the door, but you're fumbling on the keys. Oh, we've heard it all before. You can't fight this twisted fantasy. A friend of mine, I'll wait for you to see. Don't you try to hide. You know you're better off with me. 'Cause nobody wants to be alone, even if they're only ghosts. And the devil on your shoulder. I'm only cold till you come closer. When you strain your eyes to find the light, I won't be far behind. 'Cause it's better in the dark when you're a friend of mine. Hell of a better in the dark when you're a friend of mine. When you're a friend of mine. When you're a friend of mine. Don't have to search for more. I'll give you what you need. What are you waiting for? I'm right beside you, tearing
the devil on your shoulder. I'm only cold till you come closer. When you strain your eyes upon the light, I won't be far behind. 'Cause it's better in the dark when you're a friend of
In the person there's a crack. I've seen your dark side, now there's no turning back. Tasted the poison on your tongue, it almost killed me. I know it's underneath the mask. What seems so good at first is under attack. I'm in the wreckage, damage done. It almost killed
talk so sweet that I'm getting a toothache. Too good to be good, shouldn't eat it. You talk like you need me, like you never leave me, until I begin to believe it. I was good on my own until you came along, waiting for me to fold. Now you're gone, baby, gone. If you don't mean it, don't just say it. If you don't feel it, don't you fake it. If it's a lie, baby, don't say it's true. If you don't want it, why do you take it? How come you bought it just to break it? If you don't love me, then don't say you do. Days pass since I'd seen a trace of your face. Heard some new young things caught your attention. How they just be honest? You said that you promised. My disbelief lost its suspension. I was good on my own until you came along, waiting for me to fold. Now you're gone, baby, gone. If you don't mean it, don't just say it. If you don't feel it, don't you fake it. If it's a lie, baby, don't say it's true. If you don't want it, why do you take it? How come you bought it just to break it? If you don't love me, then don't say you do. Got your name and your fame and the beautiful people. I guess I can't say I'm surprised, but who's gonna love you when all that you got is your name and your fame and your lies? And your lies. If you don't mean it, don't just say it. If you don't feel it, don't you fake it. If it's a lie, baby, don't say it's true. If you don't want it, why do you take it? How come you bought it just to break it? If you don't love me, then don't say you do. Living like kings comes with a price, don't it? You're rolling in the riches, then you're rolling the dice, ain't it? Nah. Funny how it all works out in the end. You're playing with fire, living in sin. Nothing's ever free, no, nothing's ever free. Is it? Is it? When the big bad wolf comes running around, you better get yourself right out of town. All your hearts are meant to break, 'cause everybody's got a big debt to pay. Some lost souls never get found, stuck in the head, falling deeper down, down, down. Funny how it all works out in the end. You dance with the devil and you lose your head. Nothing's ever free, no, nothing's ever free. Is it? Is it? When the big bad wolf comes running around, you better get yourself right out of town. All your hearts are meant to break, 'cause everybody's got a big debt to pay. Bang, 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 gon' shoot you down. Wasting youth lies in the ground. All your hearts are meant to break, 'cause everybody's got a big debt to pay.
darts in my head, I put the devil away. Save me, oh come save me. With the darts in my head, I put the devil away. Save me, oh come save me. With the darts in my head, I put the devil away. Save me, oh come save me. With the darts in my head, I put the devil away. When the big bad world comes running around, you better get yourself right out of town. Roll your hearts are meant to break, 'cause everybody's got a big debt to pay. Bang, 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 gon' shoot you down. Wasting a youth lies in the ground. Pack your things and run away, 'cause everybody's got a big debt to pay. Save me, oh come save me. Save me, oh come save me. Save me, oh come save me. 'Cause everybody's got a big debt to pay.
Heard voices in the night, whispers of double lives. Saw back from where your knife went in. Dark eyes without a face. Now that I'm on the case, LA confidential, I deal with the devil, I won't leave a trace. Watching every move you make, and I'll keep my guard up, lie awake, and now you cross that line. I'm up all night, I'm gonna sleep with one eye open. The trust we made when broke, lost in mirrors and smoke. You laughed, but now the joke's on you. Look closely where you step. Look right and to the left, 'cause you got a sickness and I got a witness you'll never suspect. Watching every move you make, and I'll keep my guard up, lie awake, and now you cross that line. I'm up all night, I'm gonna sleep with one eye open. Wait for when you're gonna trip, and if you do, I'll make sure you admit you picked the wrong side. Now I'm right behind, you better sleep with one eye open. You better keep one open. You better keep one open. Watching every move you make, and I'll keep my guard up, lie awake, and now you cross that line. I'm up all night, I'm gonna sleep with one eye open. I'll wait for when you're gonna trip, and if you do, I'll make sure you admit you picked the wrong side. Now I'm right behind, you picked the wrong side. Now I'm right behind, you picked the wrong side. Now I'm right behind, you better sleep with one eye open.
We're living in a witch hunt, oh my. The misstep of the thieves, all the bloodshed and defeat. Burn them all down alive. Universal sentencing, dripping with hypocrisy. Taken to the stake, taken right down to the grave. Burn them all alive. We're living in the age of lies. Keep your hands
hands away from me. I cannot trust anything. I want a higher gun to save me. I'm running like the whole damn world's on a witch hunt. Throwing stones and blaming. Secrets in the closets and demons on the run. With bloodlust, how am I to know who to trust? Who to trust? Please, someone just wake me. 'Cause it feels like the whole damn world's on a witch hunt.
years, all leading to this moment. The ultimate FNAF timeline is finally complete. The pieces are in place for us. Now all we have to do is put this story of tragedy, jealousy, and loss back together. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that feels like a kid revealing the class project that he's been working on all year. Except here, it's the class project that I've been working on for the past decade of my life. This one is big, my friends, and I gotta admit, kinda nervous. I haven't attempted a timeline video on this franchise since 2018, back in the days when Mike was the crying child, Afton coming back was actually a surprise, and Fazgoo wasn't a phrase I'd ever thought I'd have to utter. But since the last time I did something like this, we've had 3 more massive games, the death and revival of the FNAF movie, and more robot kids than you can shake a staff bot at. It is exhausting trying to keep track of this whole franchise, which honestly is why I'm here today. The lore at this point is complicated. It is full of speculation and theory, so to hopefully make it a little easier for everyone and to give us all a baseline to talk about this franchise moving forward into the future, it's time to reveal my current working FNAF timeline. But just before I do, I just want to explain a couple of things. First, this timeline is massive. Seriously, it is huge. This thing towers over any video project we have ever done on the channel. But when you look at the totality of this franchise, the story of FNAF really boils down to the story of one man, William Afton. His successes, his failures, his rise to becoming co-owner of one of the most successful restaurant franchises in the world, and his eventual fall to the monsters he helped to create, only to then be reborn in a new digital form later. That's why I've decided to split this timeline into 3 main chunks. The foundation of Freddy's, how the business started and how it came into being, the Afton era, William's decades-long murder spree, and post-Purple Guy. Basically modern FNAF, everything that happens after the Pizzeria Simulator fire. And because there are lots of new big revelations in this thing that seemingly come out of nowhere, as well as just points I want to talk about further, I decided to dedicate 1 episode to each chunk. I originally wanted it to be one seamless continuous video, but it just felt incomplete without some sort of explanation at the end of each one. Once this whole thing's done, I promise I'm gonna merge all the narrative bits into one massive video so you can just skip my explanations, but for now, this just felt like the best, most satisfying, most complete way to do this. That being said, this is still about the story, the broad strokes of the franchise. So in order to make sure that you guys know that I'm not just pulling answers out of thin air, not only am I discussing some of the more controversial bits at the end of each chunk, we're also putting in a handy little graphic in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, which will show thumbnails, video titles, books, and any other citations that we need throughout the video. So if you wish to understand that specific statement in more detail, you know exactly where we've taken it from. That way you can look into those details for yourself. So sit back, grab some popcorn, or your pitchforks if you're the type to get upset when I say something controversial, and make sure that you subscribe, since this is going to be a video that you're going to want to come back to a few times in order to fully dissect. Without any more waiting, I present to you the story of a loving, obsessive father who slowly descended into madness, and along the way, discovered the secret to eternal life. Our story begins not in the 1980s, or even in the 1970s, but all the way back in the 1930s. It was the throes of the Great Depression, and people were in desperate need of cheap entertainment, especially in Utah, one of the states hit hardest, 4th highest unemployment in the nation, and full of transients. People looking for work in Salt Lake, finding none, and ultimately moving on to find their fortunes out in California. People were tired and they were hungry, but as they traveled, there was one thing that could lift their spirits. A simple roadside attraction called Fredbear's Singin' Show. The ads were plastered all over town, featuring an animated bear drawn in the popular pie-eyed cartoon style for characters at the time. He resembled cartoons like Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Betty Boop. It immediately said that this, Fredbear's, was a place where you could bring the family. And the price, honestly, couldn't be beat. For 50 cents, you could get food and entertainment as you watched the local trained real-life dancing bear perform on stage. Normally, you only got to see dancing bears at large traveling circuses like Barnum and Bailey, where the tickets would go for about $1. That's $1 without food. But this was a smaller show, like the type from the Vaughn Brothers or the Robbins Brothers, where tickets would sell for just a mere 50 cents. Watching that bear do tricks on stage brought a glimmer of joy at a time when so much was wrong with the world. The simple show would go on for years, bringing happiness to hundreds of travelers passing through looking for a quick meal. But it left a permanent impression on one little boy, capturing his imagination in a way that nothing else had. One little boy named Billy. That was his nickname at least, but his parents liked to call him William Afton. The bear could dance, it could sing. For decades, William dreamed of recreating that moment of bringing a musical bear to life, but how? William was smart, without a doubt, and he had a keen mind for business, but he wasn't the most creative. How do you make a singing, dancing bear come to life? The best he could do was using rudimentary costumes. William was inspired by the work of Walt Disney, who throughout the 50s and 60s was pioneering the use of mascot suits throughout his theme park. The big innovation? Suits with 5 fingers. This allowed the performers wearing the suits to use their natural arms and hands to interact with the guests, as opposed to the older models where the arms would just hang limply by their sides. Finally, with a simple mascot suit, he would be able to realize his childhood dream. He would be able to bring Fredbear to life. To appeal to the kids, and for copyright reasons, he changed Fredbear from a realistic brown animal to a cartoonish yellow bear with a purple hat and bow tie. But feeling like one character wasn't enough, he added another friend, a yellow rabbit with a purple vest and matching tie named Bonnie the Bunny. While Fredbear was certainly his first love, Bonnie was extra special because that was his. It was an original character that he had created from scratch. And I do mean scratch. William's hand-sewn costumes were rough with seams and stitches visibly showing, but it was the best that he could do. And you know what? It was just enough. Bonnie and Fredbear would perform on stage to small but enthusiastic crowds. Finally, he was able to deliver fantasy and fun to all the kids, delighting and inspiring them in the exact way that he had been delighted and inspired so many years ago. And things could have ended there. That could have been the end to his story. It could have been perfect had it not been for one thing. Other people saw the success of his idea and they wanted in. Enter Chica's Party World, a rival restaurant starring performing animal characters. His idea, except they did it better. William may have been the first, but obviously he wasn't the best. It hurt the prideful William Afton to admit it, but this restaurant was able to do the thing that he always wanted to do: make the animals actually come to life. All of the performers in this restaurant were robots, simple metal skeletons that were powered by battery packs, but all of them able to freely turn and talk and dance on their own, no human required. It was like magic. Magic that came from the mind of a brilliant creator named Henry Emily. This Henry, in some small way, had been able to harness the power of life itself. Afton admired him. He was jealous, to be sure, but he also looked upon this man with awe. Off to one side of Chica's Party World was a small cabaret stage featuring an elephant magician. On the other, a hippo known to ramble on and on. That one was more of a joke for the parents, but it was the main stage that was for the kids. A rocking band of characters featuring a yellow chicken thing with a southern drawl named Chica, backed by a band of other country-themed characters, including a pig with a banjo, an upbeat frog from the local swimming hole, and a brown bear with a heavy southern accent. Wait, a bear? But bears were his animals. Why not a cow or a horse? Something to fit the country theme a bit better. Why'd it have to be a bear? And adding insult to injury, they had the nerve to call this thing Ned Bear, a direct copy of his own Fredbear.
Whoops, that's gonna leave a mark.
No, that was not okay. Afton's jealous admiration turned to hardened bitterness. A bitterness that would only grow over the next couple of years as families continued to choose Chica's Party World over Fredbear's. William just couldn't compete with the appeal of the robots. Eventually, his restaurant would go bankrupt, only to get bailed out by, of course, Henry Emily. Another insult, another humiliation that William wouldn't soon forget. 1979. Despite being bitter, Afton couldn't deny that what came next was a period of massive success and expansion. With the two franchises now merged into one, it was the best of both worlds. Afton's ideas with Henry's robotic expertise. The two men decided to launch under a new name, Fredbear's Family Diner, a pizza chain that would eventually come to feature a mix of humans in performing suits as well as on-stage animatronics. They decided to stick with Fredbear as the headliner, considering the yellow bear was easily identifiable as a brand and because he was the original performing animal mascot. Afton appreciated that. This new restaurant would also see a mix of characters as the two franchises merged into one, with Pig Patch and Happy Frog performing right alongside Fredbear and Bonnie. And as part of this one big Fredbear family, they even got themselves official merch that were released, ranging from masks to magnets.
The crappy Mr. Hippo fridge magnet?
I am sorry, Gregory.
That said, not all the characters were winners. The reception to some characters was just mediocre, so they faded away into the dumpster, storage units, and retro budget tech stores of lost nostalgia, waiting for their chance to step back into the limelight if and when a headliner went out of commission. Others, though, would fare much better, like a new Pirate Fox, as well as a blue guitar-playing variant of the yellow Bonnie Bunny. Ultimately, the franchise would get so big, it would spawn its own cartoon show, Fredbear Fredbear and Friends. Business was booming. In the end, Fredbear and Bonnie's popularity would be so strong that they would be able to support the Fredbear's Family Diner franchise all on their own, while also spinning off a new sister location dedicated to their friends. In 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza launched, giving a dedicated home to all this new supporting cast of characters: Chica the Chicken, Bonnie the Blue Bunny, Foxy the Pirate, and of course the headliner, a brown Freddy Fazbear. Business was good, and Afton was happy, mostly. It did bother him that the one original character that he created, the one that he himself played, Golden Bonnie, got passed over for inclusion in that cartoon show. The only character in the roster of regulars to get ignored for the show, but other than that, things were going smoothly. He had himself a wife, 2 sons, a daughter, he had a thriving business, and best of all, he was able to learn the craft of robotics from the man that he both loved and hated, Henry. Together, they were constantly pushing the limits of what these characters could do. Because it was quick and easy, new characters introduced into the roster would be given a simple hand-sewn suit with 5 fingers that any performer could wear. Eventually, Henry would design one of his signature animatronics for that character, utilizing a divided mouth with either a hinged or sliding jaw design. This was the first generation of animatronics. But why stop there? Afton had big ideas. What if the animatronics weren't just locked to the stage, but could freely roam the restaurant and interact with the kids? What if his mascot suits could become animatronics? What if you could use more than just rigid metallic skeletons? Why not experiment with tubes and wires that would give the animatronics fluidity and flexibility while still providing structure? The possibilities for this technology were endless. Afton fell in love with robotics. He had started with a dream of bringing one simple singing bear to life, but with robots, he had stumbled across the tools that gave him the ability to control life itself. And thanks to Henry, he was practically speedrunning his way to an engineering degree. And while William wouldn't admit it out loud, one other thing that kept pushing him forward was the desire to beat his former rival, to prove himself smarter and more capable, to surpass the man who everyone else considered to be a visionary genius. But pride cometh before the fall, and tragedy was about to strike. Okay, so that brings us to the end of part 1 of the story. That said, at the end of each of these chunks, I want to break down some of the logical leaps that I made, since the more narrative format doesn't give me much of a chance to justify a lot of the big decisions. And admittedly, there are some large leaps in here. Let's just start off with Fredbear's Singin' Show, shall we? We know, based on the retro poster that was hidden in Security Breach, that at least at one point, Fredbear was an actual bear. And like I called out in that narrative segment, dancing bear shows were a real form of entertainment. The only problem is that, timing-wise, none of our main characters would be the people in charge of that business in the 30s, and a series of pizza restaurants in the 80s without him just being extremely old. Best case scenario, if Afton's running the Singin' Show when he's 18, that still puts him at nearly 70 when the first pizzeria opens and his murder spree begins. That just doesn't make a lot of logical sense because he doesn't become immortal until his first death in Springtrap. That's why I suspect that Fredbear's Singin' Show was either a family business that Afton then carried on to a new generation, or something that he saw as a kid and just wanted to recreate when he grew up. The Fredbear Singin' Show thing also starts laying the groundwork for some of the core elements of this story, that Freddy's was a place of fantasy and fun, and that Afton, despite eventually falling to become the heartless serial killer and mad scientist that we know him as, began as someone with good intentions and a love of entertaining kids. He wanted to bring things to life from the very beginning, a theme that recurs a lot for him throughout the rest of the franchise. Next up, let's talk about those mascot costumes. One thing that I keep going back to is the design of Glitch Trap. It's a handcrafted suit. You can see the seams and everything. It even has 5 fingers for the performer's hands. It is very much not a Springtrap suit. This is something much more rudimentary. It came at a time before animatronics were a part of the story. That's why I suspect that it was actually the first, predating literally everything. It's also a suit that is very personal to Afton. He put his digital consciousness in that form. It's his personal avatar. It's the way that he sees himself. There's also a whole separate discussion to be had here about the habits and rituals of serial killers. So the fact that he's choosing to lure kids and kill them in this particular suit actually says a lot about his emotional attachment to it. So while Fredbear seems to have started as someone else's creation, Golden Bonnie was uniquely Williams, giving him a personal connection. And that's not all. In this whole franchise, franchise, only one set of characters have themselves 5 fingers, the Nightmares. Even Golden Freddy, Fredbear, was a 5-fingered wearable suit at one point in the story, as we see in this shot from the graphic novel, before he, like everyone else, was turned into an animatronic. This seems to imply that all of the main characters had similar wearable mascot outfits at least at one point in time, and that whoever is having the FNAF 4 nightmares, if they even are nightmares, something that we'll touch on in part 2, saw those mascot suits specifically. Lastly, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The literal elephant, Orville Elephant, as well as the rest of the mediocre melodies. For a while now, I've suspected that the mediocre melodies played a much more important role in the story than just being a bunch more animatronics to fill out the roster. Especially Ned Bear, which is just so suspiciously close to Fredbear. And yet, there are 2 key details that we're gonna have to justify with any mediocre melodies mention. One, they're very rudimentary with external battery packs, implying that they come very early in the timeline. And 2, we know that at minimum, Mr. Hippo does eventually become an official member of the extended Freddyverse. But if these things are supposed to be cheap, generic rip-offs, why would you be trying to rip off yourself? You wouldn't. You would be stealing someone else's ideas. So if Afton created Fredbear, there would have to be some rival franchise. The only other person who would likely be ripping him off? Henry. We've talked extensively about how the mediocre melodies are clearly Henry's design aesthetic, so it just has to be him. I don't think Henry's doing this maliciously. He doesn't strike me as the type. He was likely building the robots at the orders of someone else that was running a rival restaurant franchise. But that's enough motivation to start Afton down a path of jealous rivalry, but also begrudging admiration. As the Freddy Files Ultimate Edition says, it's important to revisit the beginning of Henry and William's relationship, so here you go. I think this is where it begins. Also, this is future Matt Pat here coming back to add this one in. Seems like the recently released character encyclopedia has backed up all of this speculation. I've had this timeline written for about a month now, but I've also been holding off a bit to see what wrenches this character encyclopedia might throw into it. And on this particular point, I gotta say, it seems like we might actually have nailed it. They actively call out the suspicious similarities to the main Fredbear crew. Quote from one of the pages: Ned Bear looks like an imitation, altered just enough to avoid copyright issues. I don't know about you, but that seems to imply that we were right on the money. Knowing all of this, at one point the franchises had to have merged. That's really the only way that you get Mr. Hippo from the rival franchise as part of the Fazbear crew. This also mirrors a lot of what happened in the real-life history of Chuck E. Cheese, with 2 rival restaurants, each with their own casts of characters, merging to become one unified brand. Again, we've gone into that in detail with other videos, just wanted to remind you all of that here. But why would I call out the rival restaurant as being named Chica's Party World? Few things, actually. First, we know for a fact that a location named Chica's Party World exists. It is mentioned in the source code teasing sister location, so it is out there somewhere and doesn't fit cleanly anywhere. Second, in the story The Puppet Carver, Chica is very explicitly looped in with the book versions of Pig Patch and Ned Bear, implying that she started as a mediocre melody. Thirdly, her design just fits better with the theme of down-home country animals with southern accents playing the banjo and eating with bibs. And with her being the headliner of the show with her name on the restaurant, it would make sense then that when the restaurants merged, she was the one that was added to the main cast of characters while all the other mediocres faded away. It's also why when Freddy's closes after William's killing spree, she's the one to branch back off into her old franchise and is therefore missing in sister location, a detail that's bothered me for years at this point. It might also explain why William decided to stuff his first dead kid into Chica. That one was Henry's creation, not his. Is all of this a big leap? Yeah. Is it connecting a lot of dots that are very spread out across the franchise that I've been holding on in the back of my mind for years? Absolutely. But I think it makes sense. It also serves as a clean answer to a lot of the random threads that Scott's been leaving dangling for years. So with all of that in mind, my friends, we can close the book on the foundation of Freddy's. And don't worry, next week I'll be back to give you arguably one of the most confusing parts of this entire timeline situation, part 2, the Afton era. I promise it will actually be next week this time. No more waiting around. I am just as eager to get this one out the door as you are to watch it. I promise. You know what else I promise? I promise that we'll actually get to talking about the games. I would have liked to have talked about them in this episode, but there just isn't that much in the games that helps us depict anything pre-Family Diner. Although, let's be honest, this franchise has never been just about the games anyway. Even back in the early days of FNAF, we were decoding images and source code that Scott fed us through the website. The modern day books and the clues that we get from those things, now they're just modern extensions of that. All of it is crucial to understanding this franchise and its lore. Unless, of course, Steel Wool finally gets around to making that Fredbear's Family Diner game they want to make so badly.
I've always would love to do is get kind of back to, I have no clue if we'll ever be able to do this, but getting back to kind of like the origin of like Fazbear Entertainment or the origin of Freddy Fazbear.
But in the meantime, while we wait for that inevitably cryptic game, I hope that this start to the timeline helps to fill in some of those gaps. I'm excited to share part 2 with you next week. If you haven't subscribed and rang the bell, make sure you do it now so you're notified when that part drops. I cannot wait to see your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, I remind you, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Go easy on me. Tried my best. The lore! I have to show you the lore! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that knows that going onto YouTube can be like no clipping into the back rooms. You're minding your own business when suddenly it's days later and you have no idea how you've watched so many padlock reviews.
A very, very beefy and very robust lock.
Oh, would you look at the shackle on that baby? Shout out to Lockpicking Lawyer, by the way, for teaching me way more about locks than I thought a human brain could consume. Anyway, today we're returning to the mono yellow walls and ceaseless hum-buzzing fluorescence of the back rooms. In case you need to catch up, The Backrooms is an analog horror series here on YouTube.com created by indie filmmaker Kane Pixels. The initial video Kane uploaded in January of 2022 absolutely exploded in popularity, gaining over 43 million views and becoming the 7th most watched video on YouTube of the entire year, all thanks to its unique atmosphere, clever scares, and fantastic production quality. It was also built for theorists like us, filled to the brim with awesome ideas and hidden lore for us to decode. In fact, towards the end of the year, Steph and I even gave Kane Pixels a Streamy Award to honor him for all his incredible work.
This is a box that was delivered to my house.
So, Kane Pixels, here. Did I just no clip into the back rooms? Kane, I went to the back rooms and I got you this.
I'm just so honored to be accepting this. So I guess really the only thing I can say right now is thank you.
But now, here we are, 1 year later from that initial upload, now with a story that spans 4 decades of time and 15 videos, plus a few secret videos mixed in. The community has come up with a ton of ideas to explain this thing. Everything from alternative realities colliding to the backrooms being an incarnation of the ancient Egyptian afterlife. Our running theory here is that the world that we see in the backrooms is some sort of simulation, like a giant video game or the Matrix. What we know of as the real world is the topmost layer of that simulation, but below the surface, there's an infinite procedurally generated world of unused and cut content. Stuff that either didn't fit or just wasn't good enough to make the cut for the real world. And while I still believe that to be the case, today I wanted to take a step back and reset. The Backrooms is a tricky series to talk about. Nothing is presented in chronological order, and things tend to jump back and forth in time, with some earlier videos referencing events from later videos that haven't technically happened yet. Heck, the very first video that Kane ever uploaded is currently one of the last ones in the timeline. So today, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to sit down and make a definitive timeline of exactly what's happened and when, so we can get ourselves a clear overview of everything that's going on in this giant mystery that Kane's crafting. And in doing this, in seeing what fits where, and more importantly, what doesn't fit where, we'll be able to learn a lot more about this story. Spoiler alert, friends, there appears to be a massive time loop we're dealing with, and we might just be witnessing the collapse of an entire universe. Jump into those hazmat suits and hold on to the red guideline, friends. We're going in. The very first event that we see in the series actually comes from the most recent upload as I'm writing this script, Overflow. This video takes place on August 7th, 1972, as we can see thanks to the signature of a man named Ivan Beck. Over the course of this 2-minute video, we also hear a radio broadcast about the Lend-Lease Agreement, which happened between the United States and USSR in, you guessed it, 1972. We watch as an electrical or radio station is overtaken by a green glow that shakes everything violently before suddenly cutting to black. Remember that green light? It's going to be important for us later. The video ends with the night sky now mirror reflected. Something in this universe has fundamentally changed. From there, we fast forward by about a decade to the early 1980s, when a Central California-based company company called Async begins researching electromagnetism. On May 10th, 1982, we see one such test of a strange electromagnetic device in the video Prototype. Over the next several years, Async would refine this prototype into Project KV-31, otherwise known as the Low Proximity Magnetic Distortion System. On July 2nd, 1988, Async performs a failed third test of the system, but it's their sixth test that really matters. On October 17th, 1989 at 5:04 p.m. Pacific, they power up the system one more time and successfully open a portal to the back rooms. They have made first contact. However, this move has dire consequences. 5:04 p.m. was the exact time of a real-world magnitude 6.9 earthquake that hit California, killing 63 and injuring thousands more. All of this is confirmed in archival footage found in the secret video collateral.mov. And that's not the worst of it. From that point forward, the world is just glitched. Small, unseen portals into and out of the back room start popping up everywhere. People begin no-clipping through reality, never to be seen again. Starting in October of 1989, the number of missing persons reports skyrockets. This is confirmed in the video titled Missing Persons. Obvious video title is obvious. We soon learn that some of these portals are even big enough for entire cars to slip through, like we see in a secret, undated video that must come from around the same period. Meanwhile, back in the lab, Async begins to send in research teams. On February 3rd of 1990, they begin their first mission. Inside the back rooms, this team of scientists discover the body of Nicholas Bolton, one of the people called out as having gone missing. Fun fact, the picture used for Bolton here is actually the senior photograph of Nathan Barnett, whom you might recognize as Dad from one of my other favorite creepy YouTube series that we've covered here on the channel several times. Go figure, it's almost like subscribing to this channel is a great way to learn about all the coolest series that you should be watching right now. Just a random thought that popped into my head, but you know, the subscribe button is down below this video in case you want to use it. Interestingly, Nicholas's body is covered in what appears to be some sort of black, moldy growth. 2 days later, on February 5th, in the video autopsy report, the medical report on Bolton's body shows that it contains a mutant strain of Hay bacillus bacteria, which is slowing decay of some parts of the body while completely overtaking others. The coroner questions Async about where they found this thing.
Mr. Beck, may I ask, where this subject came from?
Which Async must not have liked. During this video, a bunch of images flash across a CRT television, including one that states contract termination. Originally, I thought that this was a contract termination between Async and the US government, but I actually found a wider, clearer version of this exact image in a trailer that Kane uploaded back when the Backrooms was just a school project. And the version of that document reads employment contract termination. So I'm guessing that the doctor started asking too many questions and was let go as a result. Next up on our timeline is February 29th, 1990, and the upload informational video. Here we see Async send in another group of scientists. This is also the first appearance of actual named living characters. In the group, we have Marvin Lee and the camera operator Peter Tench. During their mission, Tench gets distracted by voices coming from an unseen party in a nearby hallway. He separates from the group briefly to investigate, but almost immediately he's met with a glitch that makes the rest of the team disappear.
Hey guys, can you hear this? Hey!
Without knowing it, Peter has jumped forward in time. We're gonna rejoin him in a minute. But back to the rest of the team. From Async's perspective, Peter's team didn't disappear, Peter did. He just vanished into thin air, and so the rest presumably returned to headquarters to report his disappearance. We see the fallout of Peter going missing less than a week later, March 5th, 1990, in the video Motion Detected. Freaked out by an employee disappearing with no explanation, Async creates a new enclosed control room just on the other side of the Backrooms portal. They also rig up motion sensing cameras near the entrance to track everything that's coming and going throughout the space. And it's a good thing they did too, because that night at 3:53 a.m., they capture the image of a dark, blobby shape moving across the ceiling. We don't know it yet at this point in the timeline, but later we're gonna learn that this is likely a black, gooey monster made of a mutant strain of bacteria, the very same bacteria that infected Nicholas Bolton. We know this because Kane has posted a picture of the creature on his Ko-Fi account labeled Bacteria. We are definitely gonna see more from that guy later in the timeline. A little over 2 months later, on May 6th, 1990, another group of explorers are sent into the Backrooms in the video Pitfalls. This team consists of an unnamed woman, 2 men named Mark and George, and Marvin Lee, now manning the camera. The party comes across a strange room with several holes in the floor and a door across the gap. One of the men carefully crosses the expanse, opens the door, and discovers a greenish glow. Instead of just saying what he sees, he calls over to Marvin to record it.
Marvin, get the camera over here.
Across?
Okay, just hurry.
But as Marvin tries to cross the room, he falls into one of the holes and to a lower level of the back rooms. There, he discovers an underground neighborhood complete with trees and houses and streetlights. But things are just a little bit off here. Houses are built strangely. Signs are mirror reversed. Deep inside one of the houses, Marvin finds a room where someone's clearly been living, but whoever was there, they're gone now. When he hears a voice that's crying out, he goes to investigate, only to be met with another bacteria monster. This one chasing Marvin back to the hole that he fell into.
That is not a person!
Thankfully, Marvin's team's able to pull him back to safety and he escapes. The next video, Report, takes place immediately afterwards, with the team returning to Async's headquarters and sharing what Marvin found. This clearly concerns the Async staff, but because of the important upcoming presentation with the US government, they decide to just paper over the issue for the short term. A makeshift wall is constructed, sealing off the pitfalls area for the time being as they further fortify their control room. 2 days later, on May 8th, 1990, we get the upload presentation, where Async hosts several government officials to pitch them A-Space, their vision for the backrooms, an infinite storage and living solution. And they're just pitching to any old US government officials. Notice the DOE watermark. These are representatives from the Department of Energy, including this guy right here who looks a lot like James Watkins, the real-world Secretary of Energy from this time period. During a video glitch back in Pitfalls, we see reverse text that reads, "to deceive the Fede," which likely extrapolates out to deceive the federal government. I'm betting that this is text of some sort of internal memo at Async, worrying about deceiving the DOE during these negotiations. Regardless of any concern though, the presentation goes well. We see Async talking to the DOE about contracts afterwards, and one scientist confirms in a secret video that everything went according to plan.
Actually, that went perfectly. We've got all the initial signatures, and the contract should be executed by next week.
Except, there was something that didn't go quite according to plan that day. Remember Peter Tench, the Async researcher who glitched out and disappeared? Well, after witnessing his squad disappearing into thin air, Peter tried his best to get back to Async's headquarters without any sort of guideline. And he finds all sorts of weird stuff on his little adventure, including a section of wall removed to reveal a secret area with forest print wallpaper, farm equipment, and the facade of a house. Eventually, Peter's able to make his way back to the backroom's exit, discovering the new control room that Async built after his disappearance. He's able to open it with his keycard, but it sets off a motion sensing alarm inside, at the exact same time that Async is in contract negotiations with the DOE. We straight up see Peter in the Async control room from a security camera's perspective in the background. Just so we're all clear about what's exactly happening here, this is over 2 months after Peter disappeared. When he glitched, he actually traveled forward in time. This really throws Async's leadership for a loop. In the hidden video recording 014, we hear a phone call between an Async researcher and his supervisor Ivan Beck, still on the same day, May 8th, 1990.
Wait, hold on. This isn't him, is it?
As this conversation continues, the image of a newspaper fades onto screen. When reversed, this headline clearly reads, "Fiery wreck beside Viney leaves one dead." Now, Viney is cut off and could refer to either a vineyard where they make wine or the town of Vineyard near Sacramento in Central California. Either way, we can gather from this headline and the tone of the conversation that Async believed Peter was dead, and that after he disappeared, they covered it up by staging a car accident so Peter's family wouldn't ask any questions. And when Peter realizes what's happened, that he's traveled into the future and that his family thinks that he's dead, probably doesn't react all that well to it. There was likely some conflict with Async's higher-ups, which resulted in Peter either escaping the facility back into the back rooms, or Async just launched him back into the back rooms because he was a security risk. One way or another, Peter winds up trapped back in the back rooms, which leads us to the next video, Reunion. It's a few weeks later, May 25th, 1990. After Marvin's encounter with the bacteria monster, Async uses a remote control rover to return to the Pitfalls room and confirm that it's safe. They send more explorers and scientists in, creating a safe walkway to the door on the other side. Of course, we still don't get to see what's behind that door. Async instead decides to send the cameraman Marvin along with Mark and another researcher to explore the area around the Pitfalls room. Now knowing that there's a dangerous creature that roams through these halls, Mark is armed with a shotgun to protect the group.
Wouldn't want to be on the other end of that.
You wouldn't want to be on the other end of any gun, Marvin.
Yeah. That's probably true.
The trio head into a new area with no ceiling lights and floors made from white concrete epoxy instead of carpets. It's here that they discover evidence that someone's been living in this area. Tiles have been knocked off of the ceiling, seemingly as a trail to follow, and a map has been etched into one of the walls. However, before the group can really speculate about what's going on, they're ambushed by someone who grabs Mark's shotgun.
Peter?
Oh, shit.
Marv? Margaret?
It's our old friend Peter Tench once again. He's been living back here since his escape or banishment from Async. Peter laments that Async basically took his life from him, asking if they held a funeral for him, if his family thinks that he's dead. The group confirms that yes, they did hold a funeral. Everyone thinks he's dead. Async is clearly keeping the fact that Peter Tench is alive secret from basically everyone. Despite being held at gunpoint, Mark calls for backup, only for Peter to shoot him and kill him as the video ends. At this point, we hit a pretty significant time jump, with the next video being a secret archive video compiled over a year later in June of 1991. Nothing really noteworthy happens in it, I'm just including it for completionist's sake. If we want something really interesting though, we jump forward again to found footage number 2, taking place on August 19th, 1995. That is over 4 years after the archive video and over 5 since the events of Reunion. In found footage number 2, a girl in a suburban home discovers a small portal into the back rooms hidden in her garage.
God, it went into the...
After experimenting with it for a bit, she's pulled in. Inside the back rooms, she finds strange giant furniture, a locked door that she can't open, and perhaps most strangely, a car crashed into a wall. This is clearly a car that no-clipped in from the real world. Now, I originally thought that this was the car that no-clipped off the freeway that we saw in a Secret Numbers video, but Kane confirms that it's actually a different vehicle. Given that Kane also confirmed that the Numbers car wasn't Margaret Watson's car like I previously thought, that means that at least 3 cars have no-clipped into the back rooms. If I had a nickel for every time that happened, I mean, I'd have 3 nickels. It's not a lot, but it is weird that it's happened at least 3 times. Anyway, the girl follows a trail of blood from the driver of the car into an area of the back rooms that looks more residential, but she doesn't find a body. Instead, she finds a room overtaken by black vines. These aren't just any old, creepy plants, it's the bacteria monster, who comes to life and starts chasing the girl. She runs back through everything that she's explored thus far, jumping down into a lower level that resembles indoor swimming pools. Eventually, she winds up at a dead end, but before the monster can get her, the room is engulfed in a strange green light that causes the camera to black out. All of this leads us back to the very first video that Kane uploaded in the series, found footage number 1. In this video, recovered by Async on September 23rd, 1996, we see an indie movie director named Kane filming with his friends before he trips and no-clips into the back rooms. After exploring around for a bit, finding weird architecture, items that are completely out of place, and markings left by previous people who no-clipped in, Kane encounters another bacteria monster. He runs away, chased by the creature before being cornered and presumably killed. As the monster takes him, his camera falls down a hole, no-clipping back out of the back rooms and into the real world. And while that's the end of the main uploads of the series, there is one final one that I should include in the timeline, the secret upload home27647.mov, which likely takes place during the early 2000s. This is just a home video with some glitchy sections and strange imagery, which I'm going to touch on in a moment. How do I know that it takes place in the aughts? Thanks to this frame right here. See that TV over on the right? This sort of flat screen CRT television with the silver casing was popular back in the early to mid 2000s, meaning that at least part of the video was filmed around that time. So stepping back and looking at everything laid out here, the main story follows Async's experiments, its employees, and its impact on the world. That much is obvious. But the more important story here seems to be the one that's hidden under the surface. Remember the green light that's popped up a few times over the series? It appears most prominently towards the end of the timeline in found footage number 2, but remember, it was also the first thing that we see in the series chronologically right now. In Overflow, a near identical looking green light fills whatever station we're in the early 70s. Considering that the building from Overflow shakes pretty darn violently, similar to what we see happening in Async's headquarters during First Contact, I believe that this was some sort of portal opening at least briefly into the back rooms. And not just any type of portal either, a time portal. And given how similar it looks to what we see surrounding the girl in found footage number 2, I wouldn't be surprised if she or her camera were sent back in time to the early 70s. I know this sounds crazy, but we already are aware that time acts strangely in the back rooms. One of the major events of the series is Peter slipping forward in time by several months, so we know that things can be physically transported in time in this universe. We also know that things from the future can intrude in the past. In previous theories, we've discussed how one of the secret videos showed us a cough medicine commercial from the early 2000s interrupting a Simpsons episode that aired in the early 90s.
That's the downside. Now here's the good part.
We can also hear a news broadcast from 2015 during the Pitfalls video, a video that happened 25 years before that broadcast ever aired.
Do you think that your current president, President Castro, will come visit the United States?
Taking that to its logical conclusion, something physically entering the back rooms and then exiting at some point in the past is entirely possible. Additionally, remember the name on that document from Overflow? Ivan Beck. Kane zooms in real close to make sure that we remember that one real good. Ivan Beck. Now, why does that name sound so familiar?
I'm trying to get hold of my supervisor, Ivan Beck.
Mr. Beck, may I ask where this subject came from?
Yep, Ivan Beck is a high-ranking async official. I think that this girl from Found Footage 2, or at the very least her camera, made it back to the 1970s and into the hands of Ivan Beck and an early async. That could be the whole inciting incident of the series, creating some sort of time loop paradox. Async gets a hold of this footage of the back rooms, which then makes them want to explore it. They open the gateway, which breaks reality, and eventually this girl no-clips in, winding up back in time, starting the loop over. This might even explain the name of the video, Overflow. Time is literally overflowing and running over the edge. What's more, during their exploration, async may have just found themselves another time portal. The only other time that we see a greenish glow in the series is behind the door across the room in Pitfalls. And get a load of this. As Marvin is falling down the hole in that video, we see a camera glitch and text hidden within that reads, quote, "While data could be inferred from the readings, nobody knew what would actually be found on the other side." What if what they found was a portal to another time and place? That would certainly fit our description. Either way, whatever async is doing, it is bad for the rest of us. One of the stranger moments of the series up until now has been this extended shot from the very beginning of Reunion, focusing on a coffee cup with the letters MLML and some coordinates on the front. Now at first I thought this might be some Roman numeral, but it's not actually a valid Roman numeral. You can't have MLM as a sequence in Roman numerals. So I opened up our trusty old Google Maps and typed in the coordinates, giving us the rough location of the real-world Moss Landing Marine Laboratories. So that solves the MLML mystery, and a bit more digging shows us that this logo is actually a riff on a real one that Moss Landing has used in the past. But the ocean messaging doesn't end with MLML. In fact, I believe that we can actually decode the biggest theme of the series based on a video just drowning in ocean metaphors. You may have noticed that I haven't mentioned one of the mainline videos of the Backrooms canon yet. I Remember. Well, that's largely because we don't know where this one slots into the timeline. There's no date associated with it, so there's really no place to put it. In fact, not really sure that the quote-unquote events that take place in this video are literal. The whole thing is just renderings of important places and people to async and Backrooms lore, angled and reflected like Inception or Doctor Strange, all as a voiceover narration reads a poetic passage. It's more of an artistic piece really, but it is considered part of the Backrooms canon. And here's the thing, the voiceover also has an ocean theme, just like that MLML reference. Just listen to what it says.
I had a home once, a manor overlooking the sea, but when skies turned dark, the house was taken by the sea, cast down to the seabed with all the other forgotten things.
All spoken as we see images of the ocean, but also really take in what this video's saying. The speaker had a home that sat beside the sea, but it collapsed into it and sank to the bottom, forgotten. This is clearly a metaphor. We're not talking about houses and oceans, we're talking about the world and the Backrooms and Async's experiments making the world more and more unstable. Remember when I called out the last shot of Overflow? After the green light flares up and something from the Backrooms is sent back in time to here, we see the sky reflected at the earliest possible point in our timeline without any other async experiments that we know of. But afterwards, we get more and more of that reflected imagery in I Remember as async continues their experiments. This is even reflected in another line from I Remember.
But I remember fleeting shells sinking ever slowly, folding downwards into themselves, forever tearing along the seams of the sky until nothing remains except the eternal ghost.
The reflections, those are the seams along the sky. The tears in reality as everything starts to fall apart. This might have even happened before, in a previous reality or simulation of our world. In Found Footage number 2, we see parts of a home inside the Backrooms as the girl explores the area, including this part here with a strange banister and railway in front of an empty room. But here's the thing, this is almost identical to a room that we see in the secret Home 27647 video. Notice the unique bars on the railing? The way there's an open air entrance in the room behind it and a door off the right wall? This is the same architecture, but one is in the Backrooms and one is in our real world. Want more proof? The girl takes a prolonged look at this painting before the bacteria monster wakes up and starts chasing her. And in the secret video, we again get a prolonged look at that very same painting in the home. And remember, based on the TV we see here, this video was likely taken in the 2000s, several years before Found Footage 2 takes place. So how could these details be in the Backrooms now? Is it another time loop situation? Maybe. Or maybe it's because these are from previous iterations of our world, of the simulation that was destabilized and collapsed into the Backrooms. In other words, the house that fell into the sea. There's a map shown in the Home 27647 video of the Ptolemaic system, a geocentric model of the universe that suggests that the Earth is the unmoving center of everything. And isn't it interesting that this very specific map that Kane chose to include in this video is very yellow? The last line, and I remember, is,
You've always always been here.
You have always been here. Everything revolves around the back rooms, whether it be in a time loop or a simulation or both. It's the center of everything in the world, and Async's meddling has doomed the world to collapse into the back rooms once again, the house to fall back into the sea once again. You have always been here. In this series, in this world, the back rooms has always been a part of it. We're just the layer on top waiting to collapse down into it. And laying out the story Kane's trying to tell here doesn't feel like our world has that much time left. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. And hey, remember when I mentioned the Dad channel earlier in this episode? If you want to check out us decoding the mysteries of the Dad Feels channel here on YouTube, that video's on the left. If you enjoy the backrooms, you'll probably enjoy that one too. Or you can just click the subscribe button on the right. Pretty soon, YouTube might have...
I've got my briefcase, computer, calculator, pen, paper, coffee cup, and eternal dedication to the corporation.
Oh boy, we are in that part of YouTube again. Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, blowing the toupee off your favorite creepy parts of YouTube. And today we're looking at the weird, lovable man/robot/astronaut/little towel lovin' dad.
Welcome to OVA. You may call me Dad. Primary tasks: propagate internet simulation, spread rhythmic addictions, share bodily flops. Am I doing a good job?
Dad's channel has been on YouTube for 2 years now, and in that amount of time, he's really done it all. He sings, he dances, he plays Minecraft, he somehow parties with Marshmello and Jamie Foxx, he hosts a drama show where he talks about all the cults that are out to get him.
Who are you working with? Are you in the dark party?
And he pledges his undying allegiance to the server that'll bring us eternal happiness. You know, all the typical YouTuber stuff. And that's kind of the point of the channel. Dad's primary objective is to become the #1 YouTuber. To be the, quote, best YouTuber, pop singer, influencer in the universes. Even sending out a warning shot to PewDiePie. That's Felix the Cat on a Pie, in case you missed the reference. Now, you're probably asking yourself why I'm making a theory about a man who seems to be going through a midlife crisis. Well, my fellow theorists, there's a lot more going on under those khakis than you might think. The Dad Feels channel is one of the longest, most committed, and well-produced ARGs out there, complete with hidden codes, secret channels, and live events full of lore reveals. Heck, Dad even appears on other channels. Scott the Woz, Inside a Mind, Night Docs, just to name a few. Sometimes indoctrinating them, sometimes leaving creepy comments, or just leaving behind spectrogram codes. That obnoxious series of sounds, by the way, actually translates to this, a Dadbot boot up sequence. Dad even recently called me out, but then immediately deleted the video. You cowards. You and Cheryl and your server summoned me out of my slumber, tempting me with frame-by-frame lore secrets, only to immediately dial it all back? Well, there was no need. I've been watching you for a while now, Dad, and I know your game. Today I plan to expose the world, or at least our little corner of YouTube, to the elaborate game that you've crafted. There is a lot to it. I mean, look no further than the multi-hour videos other channels have uploaded trying to talk about all the facets of this mystery. But today, I'm not gonna cover it all. Just the main parts to get you all acquainted with the Dad story, as well as some of the key clues that have been dropped along the way. So what is the Dad Feels mystery? What's hiding behind that beautiful receded hairline? Consider this video your starter's guide to one of the most interesting channels on YouTube across all the universes. The story begins with the man behind the character, Nathan Barnett. Starting his own channel way back in 2006, he's been on the platform for a long time. Nathan is an actor and comedian known for his physical comedy, his dancing, and his dedication to staying in character. And when I say that he's dedicated to staying in character, I mean he is dedicated. He's been thrown out of Comic-Con for climbing the building in character. He's been thrown out of Comic-Con for crashing a Peter Jackson and James Cameron panel in character. There was even a time when he shattered his foot jumping off a 14-foot ledge and continued the show in character for another 45 minutes before rushing off to the hospital. True story, I was there for that last one. Both Nathan's character, a retro gaming nerd named Keith Apicary, and Game Theory were early featured shows on a website called screwattack.com way before YouTube series were a thing. And so we were both featured guests at their convention. While Nathan was busy breaking his feet jumping off of buildings, I was actually 2 doors over hanging out with fans of the show.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for recording this and uploading it to YouTube.
I was sitting on that table talking to everyone for like 6 hours that day. We even arm wrestled.
Finish him!
Known as Dad in the series called Dad Feels. It started as the character Dad feeling different emotions and performing dances associated with each feeling. Pretty simple, or at least it was until Nathan uploaded a video on his channel on January 1st, 2019 titled Goodbye YouTube.
I unfortunately am going to just kind of end my YouTube and wrap it up.
At first, it seems like Nathan is quitting his beloved dream job, but if you watch all the way through to the end, we actually see a familiar face, Dad. Following the link at the end leads to a video with no title and Nathan crouching down on camera, whispering.
Please, hear me off my elf. My silly red. Near my ear.
We've survived Unisonus and FNAF. This ain't our first time at the rodeo, friends. Nathan is talking backwards.
He's coming. They released him. Don't let them find me. Please.
Someone is coming after Nathan, huh? Is it Dad or is it someone else? Notice that Nathan specifically says they released him. Looking down into the comment section, I know it's dangerous, but don't worry, I'll hold your hand. We find a pinned comment left by Dad on the video, sending us to a whole catalog of uploads, which, in their entirety, tell us the story of Dad in 3 separate acts. Act 1 sets up our main characters. There's Dad, who works at company, eats food, idolizes the great deals made available at True Value Hardware, and longs to get a kiss from his loving wife named Wife. We later learn that her name is Cheryl. Along with their daughter named Daughter, the 3 live together as a happy family in Town, USA. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that this is meant to be a robotic simulation of your typical everyday family. If I had to describe the atmosphere of these early videos, it's a pretty similar setup to the other weirdly robotic internet personality Poppy, even down to her robotic voice. Except here, everyone speaks telepathically for reasons.
Daughter, you know the rule. You're not allowed to have boys come over until you reach a certain...
Yes, Griffin can come over.
Just like Poppy in the early phases was kind of an AI designed to be a singer-influencer by the Illuminati, Dad is a robot living in some computerized family situation. But not quite. You see, Dad's story goes way deeper. Across Act 1, we learn that this is not your typical happy robotic telepathic family. Through some not-so-subtle wood imagery, we learn that Wife is in love with the neighbor Malvin. Wait, is that a typo? Malvin with an A? Nope, it is definitely Malvin.
Ew, what a dumb name.
Dad, meanwhile, appears to be getting feelings for Wife's friend Diane, so much so that he even made a song about her.
Her perfume lingers on Dad's fingers when exchanging greetings. Is his sniffing cheating?
Well, Dad, I don't think so, but I do think making an entire song and music video about it may raise some suspicions with Wife. Oh, and he also has a daughter with Diane from them sniffing each other because scent is the most powerful human emotion. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but that is a whole other rabbit hole that we're not gonna go down right now. So then, is that it? The whole Dad story is just a simulation of a family living inside a computer with some family drama? No. If that was it, I probably wouldn't be covering it. You see, all that setup is small potatoes for the bigger story that's happening here. Throughout these videos, we occasionally see a mysterious man in black clothes with a YouTube logo on his chest. He never really does anything, he just kind of stands there, watching, like Dad is some kind of prisoner or pet. Making things even stranger are the flashes of memories that randomly appear when Dadbot suffers from temporary glitches.
Error. Ignore. Let Dad rephrase that.
And it's worth pointing out that this is all happening in the middle of a 4-hour solo dance party at the beach. That is commitment to the bit. But what is the bit here? What's the story that's trying to be told? Well, to understand, let's turn back to the music videos, which are often the best places to find lore in the series. You see, all the music videos keep referencing the same thing, outer space.
Daydream of the older days spent under Kepler rays. Some things that make that feel good are can of food and Kepler VR. I'm the smoothest dad living under sun. Left my planet now looking for some fun. Whatever happened on CFB 2149 403 and never forget about 22B.
So what is Kepler 22b? Well, Kepler 22b is the first planet confirmed by NASA to exist in a habitable zone of a sun-like star, i.e. a planet that could feasibly act just like Earth. It's located about 620 light years from Earth, in fact. And these are our first indications that Dad feels is actually about something much bigger, outer space, which gets confirmed at the start of Act 2 when we catch our first glimpse of an astronaut stranded in the middle of a desert. And man, talk about that production value. Did I not tell you that this is like one of the most committed bits of all time? Didn't expect that one. So what connects a robotic dad, an unconscious astronaut in a desert, and the Men in Black from YouTube? Well, obviously it's a kidnapping plot. In another music video titled Dad Feels Golden, we see a name flash up briefly, Captain Andon Rill. This is our astronaut. Via various clues sprinkled throughout Act 2, we learn that Andon was a pilot working for a company named DAD, Distant Aerospace Destinations. The clues seem to suggest that he was from the planet Kepler 22b and was married to a woman named Ella, which is who we're seeing in those flashes of memory when Dadbot starts glitching. out. He had a mission to the planet CFB-0403, but something happens, resulting in Andon and his lieutenant Emily crashing onto Earth. So how does Dadbot and YouTube factor into Andon's outer space adventures? Well, as the snippets of memory peeking through Dadbot's glitches may have hinted, Andon is Dad. At various points throughout the series, we see Dad eating food that isn't, well, food with a capital F-O-O-D. And each time he does, he snaps out of the Dadbot persona, appearing confused until someone rushes onto the scene to force feed him the red food and get him back under control.
Hey, who are you? Stop. Can I order these?
It appears that Dad isn't actually a robot, but rather a human being, controlled by whatever's inside that can of food. This is further solidified by moments like this,
Dad is already growing.
in which Dad is using sign language to communicate that he needs help. But this just leaves us with even more questions, like why is YouTube involved? And what's the goal of the Dad program? Well, it's established that Dad is housed in the facility, basically underground at the YouTube space in LA, and that wife, Cheryl, who works at the facility, kidnapped Andon to run experiments on him.
I need a favor. I've kidnapped someone and I need you to help me keep him sedated so I can continue my quantum physics research.
Based on their conversation, wife and neighbor got divorced when they lost their daughter.
Malvin, you know I still love you. We died when we lost her.
So it's my guess that Cheryl's overarching goal in all this is to find a way to get her daughter back. We learned from Andon in a live stream that Earth technology is far behind what Kepler 22b had.
Oh, this planet. You guys, you probably still use fax machines.
And in various pinned comments, we see Dadbot alluding to the fact that she lost her children and she's calling to them. So I would guess that she's using Andon and the Dadbot program to either unlock Kepler's secret quantum technology or to create a perfect recreation of the loved ones that she's lost. Basically, she's both William Afton from FNAF and Kingpin from Into the Spider-Verse. So that's our story, or at least a small portion of it. All of this is without even mentioning the multiple versions of Dadbots running around killing each other, his secret gaming channel, the server's goal in all of this, their malfunctioning daughter and her boyfriend Griffin, and Nathan Barnett himself, the series creator who's also been playing a role in the whole thing, claiming on his personal channels and socials that he's gotten his identity stolen, even to the point of contacting lawyers about it. Nathan, throughout the lore of the story, gets body swapped out with Andon in the desert, and in the process infected with a space fungus off of Andon's suit that gives rise to Human, which, after sucking his subscribers dry of donations, his words in a bunch of deleted live streams and not mine, was recently passed on to a new host named Mila, who's being supervised by some guy named like the Game Master, something like that. Anyway, as you can tell, there is a lot. Even as I write this, Act 3 is about to conclude, which I expect is gonna bring even more to the table. Like I said, this is a complicated but really fun and a huge ARG production that's been going strong for the last 2 years. It's also clear in the lore of the series that the Dadbot program gains power as he gains subscribers. He went quantum last year when he crossed 100,000, and now he's aiming to go eternal when he crosses 500,000. I don't know exactly what that means, but each time he gets a big subscriber leap, the lore for this thing tends to get real interesting. So hey, if you think small independent YouTube productions like this are cool and want to support one that's been working really hard for the better part of 2 years, give them a sub and in the process affect how this story is gonna play out. Seriously, this is a channel that really plays along with the audience, so be a part of the mystery and adventure over there. But hey, that's just a knock at the door, huh? Interesting. Food. I'm Matt Pat. 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 I'm Matt. I'm Matt. I'm Matt Pat. I'm Matt Pat. I'm Matt Pat. I'm Matt. I'm Matt Pat. I'm Matt Pat. I'm Matt Pat. Internet, welcome to Film Theory, where first and foremost, shout out to Isabella Taylor from the Notification Squad. Thank you so much for ringing the bell and officially being the first on the Golden Globes video. Now, even though this is technically a film theory, every once in a while I'll dip into the wild and weird stuff that you see on YouTube. Salad fingers, don't hug me, I'm scared. And today we welcome another member into the hallowed halls of weird YouTube channels that will haunt your dreams. But instead of me saying anything, I'll just let her introduce herself. She's quite good at it.
I'm Poppy.
I'm Poppy, 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 Poppy. I'm Poppy, Pop, 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 Pop.
All right, enough. We get it. Point taken. In case you haven't seen this channel around on either Poods or Fine Bros, let me introduce you to
Poppy,
an aspiring singer who has both a Vivo channel for her original songs and a personal channel where she posts frequent short videos of herself. And you might think that this sounds perfectly straightforward and wonder why this would ever merit a film theory instead of, say, I don't know, a third part of Doctor Who. Well, it's because the content of the videos on her personal channel are a bit more than what they appear. Sure, she might inflate and deflate a rabbit toy over and over again, or cryptically talk about what time it is, or just read the Bible straight from the beginning for a solid 49 minutes. And at first glance, you might be thinking that Poppy's videos are just random for the sake of being random. There are plenty of other channels on YouTube guilty of exactly that. But Poppy's aren't. I've gone through every one of that Poppy's videos, and there are a bunch of them, as well as all her social feeds and websites, and there is definitely a much more sinister narrative going on here. Poppy and the other people behind these videos, most notably their director named Titanic Sinclair, yes, you heard me right, his name is Titanic Sinclair, like the boat, and the author of the most famous muckraking novel of all time, The Jungle, Upton Sinclair, are using these videos to comment on what it takes to be a pop star in the modern age. And I don't mean struggling your way through the ranks from humble beginnings. I mean being churned out by a cold corporate machine and selling your soul to the Illuminati. You heard that right. Poppy equals Illuminati confirmed. Now that might sound like a far-fetched conclusion to draw, but the evidence is there. So strap in, everybody, because the road to hell is paved in pastel pinks, has a really catchy reggae beat, and occurs in 4 quick phases. Phase number 1, innocent but sexual. One of the first things you'll notice about Poppy is that she appears very young. But how old is she really? Is she around 16, or maybe she's just a young-looking 20-something? It's hard to tell, and the people behind the channel are certainly interested in keeping her age a secret. As Poppy said in an interview with Racked.com, quote, "I don't want people to talk about how old I am. I want to talk about what I'm making." Either way, the clues to Poppy's youth are everywhere in her early videos. Her very first video shows her eating cotton candy. In another, she's playing He Loves Me Not with a flower. Yet another shows her hula hooping, and the name of her first extended play is called Bubble Bath. These choices are clearly no accident, because when asked in an interview to describe her style in 3 words, Poppy states,
Barbie, kawaii, child.
Barbie explains the pink clothes and blonde hair, and kawaii, the Japanese concept of cuteness, exemplified by things like Hello Kitty, is also pretty obvious. One look at her music video for Money and you see that Japanese aesthetic everywhere. But child is the important one, because it connects her to so many young blonde pop stars that we've seen over the past 20 years. For comparison, consider Britney Spears. We're all probably somewhat familiar with 21st century Britney, the one who wore a snake to the VMAs, made out with Madonna, and shaved her head, but I'm sure that those of you who can't tell a Gen X pen from an RCL Beauty can also remember late 90s Britney as well, when she first hit the scene. In the video for her first major hit, Baby One More Time, Spears' teenageness is on blatant display through her Catholic schoolgirl outfit, which of course comes with plenty of sexualization on its own. I mean, I've been invited to Catholic school dances before, and I have seen some pretty wild things at them, but those moves that Britney's doing aren't leaving any room for Jesus. Now, in those early days, she was an undeniable sex symbol, but in interviews would outright deny it, telling Esquire in 2003 that, quote, "Look, if you want me to be some kind of sex thing, that's not me." Are you sure, Britney? Because she said this to a magazine that ran pictures like this of her next to the very same interview. Yeah, because all the innocent girls I know are doing photo shoots topless, pulling down their panties and covering up their private parts with giant strands of pearls. What did you think those pictures were for? It's not sexual, it's just artwork. Dear Britney, when the lyrics to your big song outright say, "I'm not that innocent," forgive people for being a little skeptical when you say that you are so innocent. That is all I'm saying. But back to 2017. It's hard to deny that Poppy is drawing some parallels here. Just compare this still of Poppy from the video where she introduces herself to the cover of Britney Spears' first album. Poppy also expresses the same kind of aversion to sexuality as early era Britney did, albeit in subtler ways. Take a moment from the video for Poppy's biggest single, Low Life. She's seated at a table with the devil, more on that one later, who peels a banana, puts it in his mouth, and doesn't start to eat it. That, sir, is a choking hazard, Mr. Satan. Didn't anyone ever tell you to chew your food? Sure, we don't see anything particularly graphic going on here, but Poppy's reaction tells us pretty much everything that we need to know. Sex is not a part of Poppy or her message, but the companies that manage, publicize, and basically create pop stars don't care what your message is. In the words of another pop star, Pink, and her song Don't Let Me Get Me, quote, LA told me you'll be a pop star, all you have to change is everything you are. They want their stars to be sexually appealing because it gets them attention and helps them sell to adults while still staying innocuous enough that parents don't find them too harmful for the younger fans. And if they're able to pull off this balancing act, that leads them to phase 2, dollar bills. Admittedly, this is the most self-explanatory of the phases, but it's one that the creators of the Poppy channel definitely want to acknowledge in their story. The first indication of money that we get is in the video I Made $500, in which Poppy gleefully examines and counts a stack of 5 $100 bills she's received. How she earned that money isn't entirely clear, though perhaps it's the result of the video titled Tide Commercial, in which Poppy declares her love for Tide and talks about how much better her life is as a result of the detergent. But even more egregious than that is the song Money, which shamelessly promotes materialism with lyrics like,
money can't buy happiness, then why is it so fabulous?
We could draw parallels to pop music here, but it's pretty obvious. With fame comes money. But of course, with fame and money, there comes some drawbacks, and that takes us to phase 3, losing control of your message. If there's one way to make your fan base turn on you, it's becoming a hashtag sellout. Once a celebrity gets hot, their list of responsibilities goes way beyond just making music. At one point, Lady Gaga considered quitting music altogether, citing that she was unhappy with a variety of things, but especially being used to make other people money by doing things like selling fragrances or standing around taking pictures. When she stopped doing those things, she says, she remembered who she was, as though taking away everything behind the scenes restored her individuality. Similarly, there are outside forces that try to control what Poppy has to say in a lot of her videos. In Low Life, the first music video I talked about earlier, we see men in suits and breathing masks and wheelchairs. The men behind the scenes pulling the strings and trying to get Poppy to sell out to the devil and his, banana. Poppy in this video is able to reject their control, as shown by her shoving them off stage. But fast forward to more recent videos, and this tide has started to change. In the video titled Shirt, Poppy is holding a t-shirt containing her lyric, if money can't buy happiness, then why is it so fabulous? Poppy looks off camera and asks,
what do you want me to say?
The answer we get is garbled and mechanical, but if you alter the pitch using audio manipulation tools, you get this. Just read what's on the shirt. At which point, Poppy reads the slogan. Later in the video, the voice tells Poppy to tell the people to buy the t-shirt, and she complies again. This represents a time recently after a pop star has become famous and is being pushed around to do and say and promote everything that other people want. In a more recent video called I'm Not Lying to You, we get another cryptic message from a skull that speaks to Poppy in reverse. Decoded, it says,
the next word I'm going to say is yes.
But unlike before, this time Poppy doesn't follow instructions, claiming that
I used to be more honest, but now they won't let me.
In fact, Poppy makes a lot of references to an unseen but powerful they in many of her videos. So who are they? Are they the businessmen who we saw on set with her? Well, yes, but it's also far more dangerous than that. And here's where things start to go off the rails. In Japan, we get the typical Poppy-esque statements like,
what is the difference between Hollywood and Japan?
And,
will you come to Japan with me?
But towards the end of the video, the tone shifts, as Poppy urgently says to the camera,
don't tell them I'm here. I need to escape. They don't want me to go.
And then the video cuts out. It's not just that Poppy is unhappy with her music career, it's that she fears she's in danger. And that's because she's a product of Phase 4, the Illuminati. Yup, the same group that causes videos to have more likes than views and is single-handedly keeping Half-Life 3 off the market is also keeping Poppy under their collective thumb. Okay, so seriously, this may feel like it's coming out of left field, but let me explain. Those who believe in the Illuminati, which is, according to theories, an all all-powerful secret society that controls politics and media, and also occasionally practices in the occult and brainwashing, believe that many of the most famous pop stars in history are members. Britney Spears, check. Christina Aguilera, check. Lady Gaga, check. Taylor Swift, check. Beyonce, check. Double check and triple check. So if Poppy is truly the tale of the modern female pop idol, then the Illuminati being involved actually makes a lot of sense. Well, how can you tell if someone's in the Illuminati? Those of you whose heads aren't wrapped in tinfoil might be wondering. And there are essentially two different qualifications. One, the person must be famous, rich, and or influential. And two, they use the Illuminati symbols. Since, as this very scholarly looking website puts it, the Illuminati loves taunting the profane. That's us normal, non-Illuminati people, by putting their symbols in plain sight for all to see. There are a lot of these symbols, but some of the most prominent include things like a single eye, also known as the all-seeing eye or the eye of providence, triangles or pyramids, skulls, and any other satanic images or symbols like the number 666. And you don't have to look very far to come across all of these in Poppy's videos. For a very prominent triangle symbol, look no further than Poppy's video entitled Membership Ring, which simply features a triangular ring and some dramatic music. Of course, the fact that it's even called a membership ring is pretty telling, as it would seem to indicate that Poppy's membership is in the Illuminati. Or remember that video with the skull from earlier? Well, not only is Poppy talking to an Illuminati symbol, but that symbol is speaking to her, and there are tons of theories about satanic messages being hidden in famous songs that are revealed when they're played. So keep a listen for that in Poppy's next music track. Next, there are the eyes, and boy is the Illuminati watching in Poppy's videos. Some are obvious, like this still from Poppy's video for money. Others are a bit more subtle, like a dress that she wore to the iHeartRadio Music Awards that's covered in eyeballs. Or this moment from one of her early videos in which she puts her eye behind a hole in a donut. And if you're still not convinced, here's the bombshell. If you go to Poppy's homepage, impoppy.com, and view the source code, just take a look at what comes up at the top of the page. That, my friends, is the Eye of Providence with the subtitle Poppy Knows All. Just there, written into the code, not doing anything on the webpage, but hidden just beneath the surface for theorists like us to find. Damn you, Illuminati, taunting me with your imagery! I, as a lonely profaned, are so... I don't know, what feeling is this supposed to evoke in me? Jealous! Beleaguered! Feel so beleaguered. So obviously there's plenty of Illuminati imagery hidden throughout all of this, but that brings us to the occult symbols and references. Again, some are obvious and some are less so. Of course, we've got the devil as the main character in Poppy's video for Low Life, but also throughout that video, we see Poppy in a very specific pose, seated in a chair with one arm pointed up and the other arm pointed downward, her fingers in a very specific position. This is a clear reference to Baphomet, a demon allegedly worshipped by the Illuminati and various other secret societies that allows them to harness the powers of heaven and hell. Even the seemingly random products that Poppy quote-unquote endorses have a satanic connection. Poppy's most recent product video promotes both Doritos and Monster Energy drink. Doritos could be construed as Illuminati symbols here, both because they're triangular and because Poppy awkwardly holds one over her eye for a moment, again creating the Eye of Providence. As for Monster Energy drink, there are some who claim that the drink is a symbol for Satan. And we're not just talking about the taste. I'll be here all week. Actually, Monster Energy drink's all right. The logo for Monster is an M made up of 3 lines, which each bear a decent resemblance to the Hebrew letter Vav, or 6. Put the 3 together and bingo, the mark of the beast, Vav, 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 the monster, 666. Tell you what, I'm never looking at Monster Energy drink the same way again. But there's another element here that I haven't addressed. Poppy isn't just a cute singer under the thumb of the Illuminati. There's a lot of evidence in these videos pointing to Poppy being a computer program created by the Illuminati. The video Transmission shows Poppy's personality speaking through a computer, which in and of itself wouldn't mean a whole lot. But in videos like They Have Taken Control, it's like she's literally upgrading her software to have new lines and emotions.
Poppy loves you and will always love you.
Even the title of They Have Taken Control shows that Poppy's personality is no longer her own. Add to this the fact that, in real life, the girl who plays Poppy refers to Poppy in the third person like another person or personality. But what really gives it away is one of her latest videos, Some People. A video that prompted me to literally rewrite this whole episode's conclusion right before we finished editing it, because in it, she makes her usual general statements about different types of people. There's tall people, there are short people, blah 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 blah. But it's the last statements of this video that confirm her as something not quite human. She says,
Some people have skin, and some people are made of plastic.
before turning to the camera and saying,
Feels so good to be a human being.
That turn to the camera tells us everything that we need to know. It's the director's way of signaling to the audience that Poppy isn't what she says she is. But another point of evidence supporting all of this is that if one Poppy steps out of line, it appears as though she gets replaced by another one. Consider the video titled Oh No, which features Poppy staring at the camera before a second identical Poppy appears and the first starts to bleed from her mouth. It's a continuation of 10 episodes earlier titled Am I Okay? A largely non-important episode in this series until the final frames, which shows her nose bleeding. It's as though Poppy is deteriorating, falling apart, and new Poppies are having to take her place. In fact, it's probably Poppy getting replaced that's caused the other characters in the series, a skeleton, a plant, and Charlotte the mannequin, to have this conversation.
Oh, she definitely changed.
See, I told you. Wait, what do you mean she didn't change?
And it's worth noting that this Illuminati programming doesn't just apply to the blonde girl that we know as Poppy, it applies to us too. In both Step 1 and Step 2, we're instructed to look into the computer as digital sound effects play in the background, and Poppy encourages us to keep going.
You're doing great.
It's as though by watching this video, we're the ones getting reprogrammed. We're the ones getting brainwashed. Because in the end, that's what Poppy's true purpose is here. She's not just some other young, aspiring pop singer. She's the embodiment of all the conspiracy theorists' fears online. Another pop star and media icon manufactured by the Illuminati to distract us with catchy songs and bland phrases, a means of keeping us normal folk in line, distracted with consumerism, fashion, Monster Energy drink, Tide detergent, blissfully ignorant of the real things that matter, the Illuminati's continued dominance over world power. Now, am I arguing that Poppy and Titanic Sinclair believe in all these things? No. Not at all. Poppy is a channel that wants to satirically portray elements of the life of a pop star, from the dehumanizing to the downright bizarre. And hey, if they get popular along the way from people like us and Reddit theorizing about them, well, that's a weird twist, isn't it? The music is pretty darn catchy. I've been finding myself watching more and more of Poppy every day, in fact. It's one of my favorite channels on YouTube. I tune in every single day to her videos. Every Poppy upload that I see in my notification feed is one that I watch. Oh, sorry, I got distracted there for a second. In the meantime, remember, that's just a
Poppy.
Up.
Poppy. Poppy.
And
Poppy.
And in case you were wondering, no, don't worry, these videos aren't products of the Illuminati to keep you distracted from their continued dominance either. Why would you think something like that?
Subscribe. Watch more. Subscribe. Watch more. Subscribe. Watch more. Subscribe. Watch more.
Oh, an application for editor, huh? You can always use more help. Let's see what everyone else thinks.
Hello, head editor Dan here.
Oh, finally! Was worried you wouldn't pick up. None of the other editors seem to be around their phones right now.
Weird.
Anyway, just got an email about someone wanting to audition. Got any projects I could put them on? Dan? Dan? Dan!
There can only be one.
Hello Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where today's episode is being worked on by a brand new editor auditioning for the job. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything creepy and start off a multi-month-long ARG that ultimately winds up being too obscure to be solved. Oh, wait, that's exactly what's happening right now, isn't it? He's inserting creepy imagery of himself over my VO, isn't he? Darn it, not again. Well, this episode's already on a tight timeline, so I guess we're gonna have to keep it in. If none of this means anything to you, then clearly you've never heard of the Wilbur Soot ARG, better known as the Editor Wilbur ARG. Yeah, when he's not trying to illegally sell potions out of a hot dog van in the Dream SMP, Wilbur Soot is concocting unsolvable ARGs steeped in literary references and complex musical codes. And what do you do in your free time? Notice one key adjective I used here, friends: unsolvable. This thing is filled with red herrings, obtuse puzzles, and clues that are so subtle that even though it started back in 2018, it has never been solved. When I discovered that one of the internet's biggest gaming creators right now created an ARG, I was intrigued. When I found out that it hadn't been solved, I was really intrigued. To the point that I actually reached out to Wilbur himself to check that it could actually be solved. He told me that while it is technically solvable, he would actively discourage me as well as anyone else from attempting to solve it. He reiterated this a bunch during our call, claiming that the ARG was poorly constructed with puzzles that were accidentally made too hard. And not hard in the good way of, wow, that was really challenging to figure out, but rather hard in the frustrating, oh, how could I have ever known to do that sort of way. And I get it. As someone who's done his own ARGs a few times, finding the right level of difficulty is really tough. People take clues in directions that you could have never suspected. And I gotta say, it is awesome that Wilbur acknowledges and admits all of his first-timer faults. I respect that a lot. I also choose to completely ignore him. Sorry, Wilbur, you're a good dude, but you know that I couldn't leave this ARG incomplete, and I gotta say, I think I solved it. I think I have some solid answers to the ARG's biggest lingering questions. But to understand how, you first have to understand what exactly this thing was and what made it so hard. The Editor Wilbur ARG officially kicked off back in December of 2018, but Wilbur had actually been seeding the idea of doing an ARG for nearly a year before that. Despite having a channel of his own with over 42,000 subscribers at the time, the ARG wasn't actually started there. Instead, the whole thing kicked off when another channel, Jack Sucks at Life, uploaded the ominously titled "I let a random guy edit this video."
6 days ago, I get this email titled "New editor application important," and I think, well, I'm not looking for a new editor.
Nowadays, Jack collects YouTube play buttons, but back then he was predominantly a Minecrafter. Also, on that note, Jack, I have the one version of the gold play button that you don't have. As far as I know, it's the only thing missing from your collection. I'm just saying, let's talk. According to Jack, he was contacted by a person named Wilbur looking to apply for a job as editor, which immediately is weird considering Jack already had an editor. But things get weirder once he opens the email, which begins with a giant image of Wilbur and a rant against Jack's current editor, Kai.
Now I know what you're thinking, Mr. Massey Welsh Sucks at Life. Kai has some properties that are irreplaceable, right? You're wrong. You idiot! I have all of them and better. What? Who? Wilbur!
Wilbur then, out of nowhere, claims to have invented 2 of the 6 strings found on a guitar, as well as the editing tool of keyframing, which means I guess I owe the dude a fortune in royalties. Despite all of these red flags, Jack decides